Hello and welcome to the Sci-Fi Christian's Game of Thrones Reviews, Season 4, Episode 6, The Laws of Gods and Kings, or Gods and Men, I'm not sure. Anyway, you saw the episode, you know what it was. I'm Ben DeBono.
I'm Emily Kirkwald.
And I'm Ben Kirkwald.
Now, we got a special thing to start with here that, as you pointed out last week, Ben, we really should have had last week. Because it was Cinco de Mayo. This is another Mr. Beer recipe, which if you were with us a couple of years ago, or a couple of weeks ago when we had our first Mr. Beer of the year, and hopefully last, we talked about how, Mr. Beer is like the worst homebrew route you could possibly go. I think not sanitizing any of your equipment, getting a lot of weird bacteria and tons of off flavors in a good homebrew is probably superior to a well-made Mr. Beer. So we had the Oktoberfest Mr. Beer, and I think we all agreed that was terrible. But now we have, I have a few more bottles of this one. This is what I call Señor Cerveza, which is Spanish for Mr. Beer, because this is a Mexican Mr. Beer Cerveza with jalapenos in it. And we tried this last year as well. I don't think we've had it since then. Once again, as I said before, I tried to give it away at Christmas time. Nobody would take it. So here it is. And let's start with the smell test, everyone. Oh, it smells horrible.
Smell the jalapenos.
Yeah.
So those jalapenos are still going strong.
Jalapenos, the jalapenos.
The jalapenos, yep. All right. Well, bottoms up.
Oh, God. Yep, that's terrible. That is a terrible beer.
It starts with no flavor. It kind of flares up into a sour jalapeno taste, and then dies down to a really disgusting aftertaste.
I'm really excited to get this done and go over to the tap.
Well,
I'm really excited to switch glasses with you because you poured me too much.
Sorry.
No. Here we have to hear two questions. Is this improved over last year? Did aging it another year make it better?
No, I thought it had more flavor last year.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
God.
That's a horrible beer. And
I'm going all in right now.
which Mr. Beer do you prefer? I think is the other big question. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just awful.
Trying to get through it.
At least there was like a decent jalapeno flavor in there last year. Now you can't even taste that. It's just kind of...
It's just gone. It's all gone.
It's just faded into a disgusting little concoction. How many more years do you think this will be safe to drink? I mean, I know they say beer doesn't actually go bad.
And we're all sick tomorrow.
And this is your excuse to not go into work tomorrow. I had a Mr. Beer. I'm not coming in. Are you hungover? No. I had a Mr. Beer. Don't get hungover on Mr. Beers.
Just get sick off of them.
And there are people who make this stuff and think it's great. So ponder that world.
No.
Better or worse than a Bud Light?
Oh, worse.
Worse.
Oh.
Definitely worse. Definitely worse.
It's just awful.
Like during the episode, we had this Saison farmhouse ale. And you had bought, Emily, and you were asking me, what did I think about it? I was like, yeah, I wasn't too keen on it. I totally chugged couple six packs of those before I finished the rest of this class. But
Yeah.
I gotta get through it. I need some
yep, power through, everyone, power through.
All right.
Anything special that we're smoking tonight? I've got Villager 1888's Midday Blend.
I've got my golden vanilla again this week. Come back to it.
All right.
Delicious as usual.
Mm-hmm. All right, say something more about that.
I don't know, that's about all I got. I'm going to quick chug my glass and then let's get started about this episode. Which I had really was disappointed in until the very last scene.
Interesting.
As the last scene started, I was like, alright, well, this episode is not that exciting. There needs to be a lot more happening here. And then it just all went down and I was like, alright, well, never mind.
So you liked the trial. You weren't too keen on everything before then?
Yeah.
Or you didn't like even the trial? You just
no,
liked the ending of the trial?
I'm trying to think about the things beforehand. I think,
well, we'll go through it.
Well, alright, let's, maybe I'll change my mind as we start talking.
Yeah. And for my initial impression, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I do think this is going to be... This is an important episode, but not for the reasons that you would think, and not for anything having to do with the plot necessarily. So I'll get into that.
Okay.
A little cryptic teaser a little later on.
Perfect.
What did you think, Emily? Overall impressions as the non-book reader here?
Well, I would agree that the trial was the best part of the episode, but I liked most of it, except for Stannis' part, but we can talk about that when we get to it.
Well, we get to it because it's the first thing up. We're in Bravos, everyone. Finally in Bravos, home of course, Cyril Farrell, the first swordsman of Bravos. You did chug that. Well done.
Thank you. I had to get through it. I'll be up in a minute to go get something else.
Mm-hmm. So we're in Bravos. I was excited about this because Mark Gatiss finally makes his appearance. Mark Gatiss, of course, of Sherlock fame and the League of Gentlemen, Doctor Who writer. I don't know. I'm curious why you didn't like this. I actually really enjoyed the Iron Bank scene. I thought it was kind of fun to get to see the Iron Bank.
Well, first I forgot why they were even there.
They need money.
I thought that when Ben mentioned, the Iron Bank, I thought that meant like, the Iron Islands, Iron Bank, like the shore or something. But then I realized it was like the bank.
Oh.
But I just
that is an interesting connection. I can totally see how you would assume that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Nothing in common.
Right.
They're complete opposite ends.
A bank.
Yes.
Yes, but I don't know. They asked for money. They're like, no. Okay. I don't know. I probably will see why it was important later, maybe, but I just.
Well, they did get their money.
Oh, because he dropped off the money for the pirate.
Right. Yeah. So, you get some heavy, tough love to Stannis from the Iron Bank, which is basically, you might be right, but it really doesn't matter because you're not going to win. And then Davos really kind of gives it right back to them. And sort of saves the day for Stannis. So yes, they do have their money, which is why this is important.
Right.
Because essentially Stannis is bankrupt. If he doesn't get more money, he's done.
So is Westeros, but
yes,
they just don't know it yet.
Yeah, and I also think this was interesting because it really, it made the argument again that the Lannister house, which seems so powerful right now, isn't invincible, And that was maybe a point that got driven home a few times during this episode. When, especially the conversation between Jaime and Tywin about who's the heir of House Lannister. It's that, on the one hand, yeah, they control the throne, but on the other hand, they had to pull off this whole lie that Joffrey and Tommen are really Baratheons, and so, in a sense, House Lannister might be in power, but that's a very tenuous grasp they have, especially considering that Tywin is not a young man. So it kind of drove home that point as well and showed that people outside of King's Landing are aware of that difficulty, too.
Right.
I think I'm getting heartburn from this.
I'm telling you, just go for it. I like that scene. I liked the way they had Bravo set up. Is pretty much exactly how I pictured it. The giant warrior at the beginning was exactly how I pictured it.
Yep.
So I thought they did a nice setup there because we'll come back to Bravos every once in a while.
Yes, some storylines may spend a great deal of time there. You never know. Yeah. And then, of course, we get Salladhor Saan back, who you may not have recognized him, Emily, because he hasn't gotten a lot of screen time on the show.
Oh, the pirate guy?
Yeah, the pirate guy.
I knew that we'd seen him before.
I recognize his face.
Yep.
Yeah.
And chest hair.
Chest hair. Yes. Well, if you know your Game of Thrones chest hair, you have a problem, and just turn off the review and go do something else with your life, okay? But we did get to see his chest hair. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
And then speaking of iron, not Banks, but the Ironborn of the Iron Islands.
Oh man.
They try to give Theon a rescue, and he does not want to be rescued.
No. It's just amazing how much the torture and such has changed him into Reek, and how he is completely this other person.
Yeah, I think if there's any doubt
Oh.
before this week that, you know, maybe he was just putting on an act or just trying to be self-preservative. No, he's been driven completely insane. He is out of his mind. And we move very decisively into Book 5 territory with Theon, as he is sent on a mission to play the role of Theon as an ambassador to a city that's unnamed in the show. If they follow the books, it'll be Moat Cailin, but we'll see what they do because we haven't actually seen Moat Cailin in the show at this point.
But you never know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this was okay. It was a bit of a rehash. I think I'm glad to see them moving the Theon story forward because, like you said, Emily, I think at this point it's like we've seen the torture, we've seen where he's at. There's nothing else to be done there unless we move him somewhere besides this really horrible relationship with Ramsay Snow.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is...
Yeah,
But they
it just
did...
makes you feel so uncomfortable that somebody can be made to act that way.
Right.
Which is the way it's supposed to make you feel.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So good job, writers.
Yeah. It is interesting in terms of the changes from just the way, and this isn't a criticism by any means, but the differences in terms of style as they've approached the storyline from the books to the show, because in the books I think it is it has a more tragic quality to it as you're reading about what's happened to Theon.
Yeah.
Whereas in the books it's more, or in the show it seems more horrifying, it's shocking, it's repulsive.
Right.
And both those, not to say none of those qualities aren't there in the books or vice versa, but the emphasis is very different, I think, in the show, even though they're communicating more or less the same set of events.
Right.
All right, Emily, you wanted dragons. You're saying, where's the dragons? We haven't seen the dragons. Well, you got a dragon.
Yeah. I
a
was
big one.
pleased.
Mm-hmm. And they are large.
Some goats.
Yes. So, no more small dragons. I think it was Tim last year who was always complaining the dragons are too small.
Right. Well, no, the wing size was huge, but then when you got close, it seemed a lot smaller or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
They're large now.
Very large. And speaking of Book 5 material, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe this is Danny's first scene in Book 5. Dealing with the goat guy and holding court. It's, if not the first, one of the first.
No, I think yeah. It's her first thing that's actually happening, because she recaps for us a little bit what's been happening before she gets going.
So once again, we're in Book 5, and this is maybe where where I should pay off the tease I was given earlier, where I say this is an important episode. This is the episode where I think it became completely obvious that the show writers have resigned themselves to the fact that they are going to pass Martin. And that from this point out, yes, they're going to do the Book 4 and 5 material, but they are heading towards their own endgame. Let me explain. We are decisively in Book 4 and 5 material on several plot lines at this point.
On everybody except for Tyrion.
Tyrion's not there, Jon Snow isn't there, Arya's not quite there. There's a few other odds and ends, but beyond that, we're essentially past Book 3 forever. And Davos and Stannis aren't quite there. They have a little bit more that's still in Book 3. Here's my prediction. I think that there are a couple storylines in Book 4 and 5. I won't go into one of them because it would be spoilery, but the stuff down in Dorne, I think they'll either severely condense or cut altogether. I think that they will be virtually done with Books 4 and 5 by the end of next year. I think they will move the major storylines to the end. I can't see Dany's storyline taking more than one season. And then they will they've talked about at HBO, the line has been we're aiming for 7 seasons. The last 2 seasons are going to be their own endgame. Based on what they know from talking to Martin, of course. It's not going to be completely different from the books, but they are moving towards their own take on the series.
Right.
So look for one more season of faithful books, book content. But after that, I think you'll have some stuff from 4 and 5 that's still going to be taken care of in book 6 that's being wrapped up. But even if book 6 comes out or I said book 6 earlier, season 6. But if book 6, Winds of Winter, comes out next year, which is the earliest it's going to happen, say it happens next summer, which would put it 4 years after Dance with Dragons. Well, by that point, season 5 is not only done filming, it's done airing. They've already started work on scripting everything in book 6, or season 6. It's too late.
Right.
They will have moved beyond the books into their own ending of the series starting in season 6. Thoughts on that as a book guy?
Depressing.
It is.
But
It's time.
I don't know.
I mean, if people think I'm wrong, be sure to say so in the comments.
It'll be a great literary criticism.
Yeah.
I think in the comparison between the two after
Right.
the series is over.
Right.
And I think that we would grow to appreciate it.
Yeah. And the reason why I say this episode is the one where it became apparent is that it's one thing when you have Pod and Brienne wandering around, because we can not see them for 3-4 episodes and be okay. It's one thing when you have Bran and Hodor. Okay, we maybe only see them a few times a year. We could stretch that out or give them a different subplot. But now that we're in Dany and we're in Theon, and we keep having talk about how Dany's over there, that's not in the books. That conversation at the small council about what about the Targaryen girl, not in the books. That's clearly the show setting up for, we want to bring Dany over, and we're going to do it sooner rather than later.
Right.
So, time to resign ourselves to that book, friends.
All right, let's move on, shall we?
Yeah. Speaking of the small council, we have Varys finally in this season. I don't think we've seen him.
Thank goodness.
Or not very often, anyway. So he's back. We got the small council thing going on. That's always exciting. We already talked about the Dany conversation, so I don't know if there's anything more to say on that.
No.
And then we get into the trial.
Which is good.
Thoughts on the trial?
Wait.
Wait, are we missing something?
Did we talk about Theon and his sister?
Yeah.
Oh, we just talked
We did.
about how him. Oh, but I don't know. I thought we were
We
gonna
missed
say something about like
Varys.
his sister. I was gonna say I think it's really. I don't know. I really liked that she was like, what they did to my brother, they did to all of you, and that at least these people feel so strongly about their other Ironborn people that they are gonna risk all their lives to go save them.
See, I think they wrote themselves into a corner there. Because as a book reader, I knew that there was no chance she was going to make it out of there with Theon. And so they revved themselves up with a whole dramatic scene, like you were saying, we gotta go get him. And then they leave him there.
Yeah, and then she was like, oh, he's dead.
Right. To me, that whole scene, which I don't think is in the books,
No.
was really anticlimactic. But I agree with you that it had a good setup, and then it went absolutely nowhere. And that's why I think it was a narrative corner they wrote themselves into, because based on what they're having to follow in the books, it couldn't have gone anywhere. It was a complete dead end.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Which I guess they just wanted to show us that, oh yeah, they know about Theon, and they're not going to do anything for him. And considering the other stuff that's going on in the books with the Iron Islands, I think if they want us to show us a little bit of her character, there's a lot more interesting stuff we could have gotten
There is
into.
a lot more interesting
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Maybe they're saving it for next year. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. That scene didn't do it for me, except to really drive home the point of just how far gone Theon is. And maybe that's what they were going for.
Right.
All right.
So we do have, before the trial, we have Varys' monologue with Oberyn.
Yes. Oh yeah, that was
which
good.
was just terrific.
Uh-huh.
And again, we hear Varys essentially saying what he said back in season 1, where I'm here to serve the realm. I'm not here to serve myself. I'm not here to like boys or like girls or do anything. I'm here to serve the realm.
I think Varys might be the one honest character in this entire show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's debatable for both book and series fans. Do we trust Varys when he's saying that? And there's a long time where I would have been on the other side of that debate. But yeah, I think Varys is the good guy in all of this. Mm-hmm. He is the anti-Littlefinger.
Yes.
Very, very
and
much so.
I agree that I also changed my mind on that.
Yeah, so Varys, I think, can't really say much more about my reasons for that without getting into spoiler territory. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's some interesting Varys stuff that you don't see him that often, but when he pops up, he will have some very fascinating roles to play.
Yes.
Yeah. Now I say one honest character, but of course he lies profusely. Maybe the most notable example right in this episode is his whole conversation or his testimony at the trial. That was fascinating. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't want to say anything about it at risk of giving things away, but pay attention to what was going on with everything that was said, especially the exchange between him and Tyrion. I would pay attention to.
Yeah, that was big.
Yeah, I will not forget or whatever he says.
See, I never forget a thing.
Yeah.
Was the line. Yeah.
Yeah. It made you feel like, okay, there's a lot more to that.
And essentially, again, what's Tyrion referencing there is that Tyrion did something to serve the realm. And Varys is essentially saying, I owe you one for that. So why is Tyrion, why does Varys see himself as being in Tyrion's debt to some extent? Well, because Tyrion did something for the realm. Where that will go, we'll see. Mm-hmm. We will see. Okay, so we have Meryn Trant, who, this is kind of a Cersei, kind of a long line of people who are pissed off at Tyrion for one reason or another. Grand Maester Pycelle, of course. Right. And this is their opportunity to twist events to get back at him for whatever they're pissed off about.
It's like the end of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
In the trial.
I never saw the end of Seinfeld.
Never mind then. Alright. Everybody else out there will get it, except for you. That's fine.
Yeah, it's like it reminded me of the end of Seinfeld, the trial.
Thank you. Yeah, the trial at the end of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Everybody comes back, about what they did to them.
Yeah. Yeah, so we kind of have that first round of witnesses. Then we have this scene between Jaime and Tywin that I was really fascinated by. Because I think my reading of this scene is that Jaime goes into it thinking he's going to convince Tywin to do this. And Tywin's manipulating him all along. This is exactly what Tywin wanted. He gets a win-win because he doesn't want to kill Tyrion. He wants to blame him and get him out of the way. Right. He doesn't want to kill him. He wants Jaime to renounce his vows and go be at Casterly Rock. Remember we saw that scene at the beginning of the year. Yeah. This was Tywin's endgame for this whole thing.
Yeah, and he's always got that plan, which is just...
Yeah.
Ah.
But when Jaime, it's so well played with the actors, where Jaime is making this desperate plea of do this, and I'll renounce my vows, just let him be. And Tywin, done. It's just instant. And that's where you know that it's not, he wasn't convinced in that moment. He had this in his mind, this is what he wanted.
Right.
And Jaime just walked right into it. It was so well acted and written. Just really a well done scene.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
And then it was outdone.
Yes. Well, before we get there, well, one more thing on that scene. I did like the line of where Tywin's like, done. You'll do this, and you'll father children named Lannister.
Yes.
Oh. No more incest. Yes. So before the big end scene that I think was just incredible, we have the Shay scene where she is testifying. What did you think of that, Emily? Were you expecting that?
No. One, I was not expecting her. Two, it was just like, oh, wrenches your heart because she loved Tyrion. She's just saying all these things against him. But I mean, he sent her away, and
Well, there we go. Because this is, if you remember the episode, it was episode 1 or 2, where we see him send her away, which was a scene not in the books. And if you go back to our review of that one, I said in that episode, I don't like this scene because it removes ambiguity from something later on. This is the later on. This scene's so much more ambiguous in the books, as far as, is she being serious? Is she angry at him for something?
Yeah.
Why is she doing this? It's very ambiguous.
She's in tears almost.
Right.
And we can't tell if he can't tell if they're tears of sorrow or tears of I'm being forced to do this.
Is she acting? Is she angry? Is she sad? Exactly. It's a very powerful and ambiguous scene, and I felt like they really removed a lot of that. Mm-hmm. Still a good scene, and I'm glad to know it still worked for somebody who hasn't read the books.
I was still questioning, like, who got her here? Who made her do this?
That's a good question to answer, or to ask. You may find out. We'll see.
And she left, so somebody had to bring her back. She wasn't at the wedding, so.
All I will say,
don't say anything.
I'm not going to say anything except for what you've already seen. That if you were to go back and rewatch the early episodes, you could figure it out. They left a strong clue in the early episodes to figure it out. So you will get some info on that at the end of the season. But if you want to play detective, go back through the early episodes of this season and look for that clue.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then we get what may be Peter Dinklage's finest work on this show so far. And that's saying something because he's been extraordinary. Oh my gosh, his confession was just out of this world.
Yeah.
It was worth waiting a week.
Yep. So perfect. And what's fascinating about this scene is that there's so many parallels between this and when he was put on trial at the Vale in season 1, because he pulls the same trick there to a certain extent, where he gets out of his cell to go confess, and then he confesses like, "Oh, I've had sex with so many people." He's just pissing off Lysa. Mm-hmm. If you guys remember that. And here it's like it's the same logic going through his brain, but it's so different too. It's a really well written parallel between those two.
Yeah, I never even drew that before. That's really cool.
Yeah, and then ending with, of course, the trial by combat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Tyrion again being in that impossible situation, except, here, there it was like he had Bronn in his back pocket. He knew who was going to step up and take his place, and that Bronn had a good chance of fighting for him and winning. And here, this is a Hail Mary. He's got no one.
Right.
This is about Jaime. That's what I think. I think he's going to call Jaime.
But even if he calls Jaime has to agree. He doesn't just get to call whoever he wants. They have to agree to
Exactly.
it. So then it becomes just...
Yeah.
We will see. But yeah, really, that would make for an interesting, you mentioned literary comparisons, either in the book or just going back in the show. Rewatch that trial scene from season 1 and then rewatch this episode. Lots of parallels between the two scenes. And well done by Martin, who put them there in the first place, and then well done by the show, and especially Peter Dinklage for bringing them to life. Just extraordinary.
Incredible.
I think my favorite part was the stare down between Tyrion and Tywin.
Yep.
At the end, just staring at each other, just like, all right, this is how it's gonna be. This is how it goes.
Yep. And then that great line, I did not kill Joffrey, but I wish I had. Oh! That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
All right, anything else on this episode, guys?
No.
Just left you with so much suspense. I just can't wait till next week.
I'm still at the same point I was at the beginning of our conversation. I still feel like up until the last scene redeemed the entire episode, I think.
Yeah.
But other than that, I wasn't real impressed.
The other thing I was thinking about, and I have mixed feelings on this because I wasn't really enjoying the storyline But they set up the whole "Here come the Thens" thing with the wildlings at the beginning of the season. We haven't seen them in like 3 weeks.
True.
Which I don't mind because that wasn't really working for me anyway.
Right.
But it just seemed like a weird setup for something that we will get back to them, but certainly isn't going anywhere.
Right, exactly.
So no John this week, no Bran this week, no Arya this week.
No Pod.
No Pod, no Brienne.
No Liza and Littlefinger.
Next week.
True.
Next week's episode is called Mockingbird, which is the Littlefinger's house sigil.
Right.
So, if you are a Littlefinger fan, I think you will be quite pleased with whatever comes next week. We'll see how far they get into the storyline. All right, everyone. So, okay episode followed by a fantastic final 15 minutes, I would say.
Indeed.
Yeah, really good stuff. And that's all for now. I'm Ben DeBono.
I'm Emily Kirkwald.
And I'm Ben Kirkwald.
And this is the Sci-Fi Christian's Game of Thrones Reviews. Goodbye.